28 people were aboard a ship in the Antarctic Ocean, but their ship was trapped in millions of tons of ice. They had been stuck in the same spot for 7 months. During that time, one night, they heard a loud sound from beneath the ship, and the ship tilted to one side. It seemed as if someone had tried to push the ship hard from below. What happened next was beyond their wildest imagination. Welcome back to ZMTV Videos. Dear viewers, the Antarctic Ocean, where waves are as high as buildings, winds reach 100 kilometers per hour, and the water temperature is so low that human blood begins to freeze. Traveling through this ocean is like embracing death. Even if you survive the cold and the waves, massive icebergs the size of mountains have the ability to crush your ship with ease. But 111 years ago, when technology wasn't that advanced and neither were ships, a group of 28 people got their ship trapped in this terrifying ocean. Under the open sky, they spent not a few weeks or months, but astonishingly, 2 full years. As far as the eye could see, just ice, stormy winds, shortage of food and water, and no chance to call for help. This is a survival story that the world has named the greatest survival story of all time. The hero of this story is Sir Ernest Shackleton, an explorer whose mission was to test the endurance of the human body. That's exactly why he named his ship Endurance. He had undertaken many dangerous missions in his life. In 1901, he was part of a mission to reach Antarctica, but he had to turn back 750 kilometers short. In 1907, he tried again, but had to turn back just 150 kilometers short. And this time, in 1914, his plan was not just to reach Antarctica. He intended to cross the entire continent on foot. The reason was simple. Sir Ernest Shackleton wanted to do what no one had done before. This mission was named the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. And because the nature of this mission was extremely dangerous, no one was willing to go on it. Sir Ernest's first challenge was to find a crew for his expedition. So, he wrote an advertisement and published it in the Times newspaper. Keep in mind, this was no ordinary tour operator's ad. Its opening words were, "N wanted for hazardous journey. Small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." Sir Ernest wanted to attract people who did not fear danger. Soon, he hired a crew of 27 people. Sir Ernest had planned this mission for 4 years, but as the time approached, his expedition dream began to fade. Because World War I had begun, everyone thought the expedition would be cancelled. But Britain, which had itself declared war, gave permission for the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. For this mission, an extremely strong ship was needed, one that could cut through the ice-covered Antarctic Ocean. This was no ordinary ship that could be easily built. Fortunately, such a ship already existed for Arctic travel. A Norwegian company had built this ship for another explorer who wanted to take wealthy elite-class tourists polar bear hunting. But his business model failed. Sir Ernest bought this ship and named it Endurance. Endurance was built especially from thick American oak, and its design was such that the wood could withstand the enormous pressure of ice. It was a kind of hybrid ship. It had both sails and an engine. Finally, the day that Sir Ernest had been waiting for years, arrived. On August 8, 1914, Endurance began its journey from the English city of Plymouth. For the next 4 months, they traveled only in the Atlantic Ocean. First, they went to Argentina, then from there to South Georgia Island. After completing final preparations there, on December 5, 1914, they set the ship's direction toward the Weddell Sea in the Antarctic Ocean. On board Endurance, along with 28 people, there were also 50 large breed dogs, who were to be used to pull equipment across the Antarctic ice. This journey continued for 46 days. And they were now just 1 day away from reaching the coast of Antarctica. But then, on January 18th, 1915, the first problem blocked their path. What happened was that the ice layers over the Weddell Sea became thicker and thicker, at one point reaching 18 feet thick. Endurance no longer had the strength to cut through them and move forward. Some of this ice was also too weak to start walking on. Endurance was now trapped in ice about 130 kilometers before its destination, Vassal Bay. Initially, they thought the problem was temporary, but this proved to be the biggest problem the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition would ever face. After several days of continuous attempts, they decided to manually move the 300-ton ship forward. For the next 2 days, the crew worked tirelessly cutting the ice and making a path, exhausting themselves completely. But this task was even harder than they had imagined. After many days of effort, they could only move the ship 300 meters. Then Endurance got stuck again. After a month of trying to free the ship, on February 14, 1915, Sir Ernest finally gave up hope. He decided to leave the ship to the natural movement of the ice. Perhaps when winter ended, the ice would break on its own. During this time, Endurance served as a winter station. The crew continued their daily routines. The only difference was that the ship was now stationary in one spot. The crew's morale was very high, and Sir Ernest had maintained strict discipline on the ship. They kept themselves busy by having discussions, playing soccer, cutting each other's hair, and spending time cooking, all in the hope that one day the ice would break and give them a path to go forward or backward. As the days passed on Endurance, the crew grew even closer to one another. They even formed emotional attachments with the animals. Everyone hoped that one day they would reach civilization. But perhaps nature had other plans. In April 1915, the ice did begin to break. But due to increasing pressure, the ice layers began piling on top of each other. This was an extremely unexpected event. The compressing millions of tons of ice began putting pressure on Endurance as well. At this point, the most important thing was to free the ship from the ice pressure. So everyone worked together to remove the ice. After a few weeks of effort, this problem was averted, but the danger still remained. On the night of July 14, 1915, a loud sound suddenly came from beneath the ship, and Endurance tilted to one side. No one knew what had happened. Was it a collision with a whale? Or something else? Somehow, the night passed. But what appeared in the morning was unbelievable. The compressing ice layers had not only tilted the ship to one side, but its rudder, which is used to turn the ship, was now completely broken. The crew of Endurance had now been trapped here for 7 months, and they were at least 2,000 kilometers away from any human settlement. No contact with anyone. No hope of help. If they had hope in anyone, it was Sir Ernest Shackleton. By October 18, 1915, the dreams of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition had been shattered. The mission's crew had been stuck in one place for 9 months. Then, one night, a sudden wave of pressure struck. It tilted Endurance 30 degrees in the blink of an eye. Now the danger of the ship leaking was looming over their heads. In some places, due to cracks, water had also begun to fill in. The entire crew worked all night to somehow stop the water from filling the ship. But perhaps this was as far as their luck would hold. On October 27, 1915, Sir Ernest Shackleton gave the order to abandon ship, because this was now the only way to save their lives. Essential supplies were taken out. Animals, food and water, lifeboats, bedding, everything was brought out. The entire crew was now forced to live on the ice sheet under the open sky. The ship that had been their shelter for the past several months, they watched as it broke under the pressure of the ice, was destroyed, and slowly began to sink into the water. Now, only one question was on everyone's mind. How long could they wait on a floating ice sheet? Sir Ernest Shackleton decided that staying here was not without danger. He knew of an island 550 kilometers away called Paulet Island, where there once used to be shelter and supplies. But to reach there, the 3 lifeboats alone were not enough, because ice that could break a massive ship. What were these lifeboats in front of it? So, they decided to walk to the island. They began their journey toward Paulet Island, which was the most dangerous part of their adventure. For the next 6 months, the crew faced life-threatening dangers. The ice sheet they camped on would either develop holes or start drifting with the currents. Fortunately, these ice sheets were slowly floating toward Paulet Island. So Sir Ernest decided that they would reach Paulet Island while floating on the ice sheet. By now, their food and water had almost run out. Whatever they found on the floating ice sheet, they would try to hunt, like penguins and seals. By February 1916, it had been 13 months since they had started their journey. Conditions had become so bad that they were surviving on just 1 biscuit per meal. Waiting for Paulet Island through the next month, the situation became so dire that they had to kill their own dogs. This provided them food for the next few days. They hoped that upon reaching Paulet Island, they would find some supplies. But the floating ice sheet they were on changed direction, and instead of Paulet Island, it began moving toward Elephant Island. For the next several days, the sea was stormy. The temperature dropped to 20 degrees, and many crew members began getting frostbite. Their mouths and tongues had swollen so much that swallowing was difficult. Before they knew it, April 1916 had arrived. Somehow, using broken ice sheets, they managed to reach Elephant Island. After 16 months, they were touching solid ground for the first time. On Elephant Island, They breathed a sigh of relief. But this island was completely barren, and it wasn't possible to stay here for long, especially after food supplies ran out. There was only one hope. South Georgia Island, 1,300 kilometers away. Sir Ernest Shackleton decided to undertake this suicidal mission of reaching South Georgia Island in a lifeboat. He chose a few people from the crew, and on April 24, 1916, they set off from Elephant Island towards South Georgia Island. This route is considered one of the most dangerous sea routes in the world. They faced waves as high as 90 feet. The freezing cold was so intense that every part of their body began to freeze. Along with all these difficulties, they had to complete this journey without GPS, and even without a compass, only with the help of the stars and the sun. Despite giving it their all every day, they couldn't cover more than 80 kilometers per day. After 16 days, on May 10, 1916, Sir Ernest Shackleton and 5 crew members finally succeeded in reaching South Georgia Island. But there was a problem. They had arrived on the wrong side of the island. In front of them were 4,000-foot-high mountains. After 36 hours of continuous climbing, they finally reached the other side, where the whaling station was located. Shackleton's condition was so bad that the people at the whaling station couldn't even recognize him. No one could believe that Sir Ernest, who had left nearly a year and a half ago, had arrived in such a state. After staying on South Georgia Island for 3 days, Sir Ernest set out again, back toward Elephant Island, where he had left 22 people in terrible condition. He made several unsuccessful attempts to reach Elephant Island. Finally, on August 30th, 1916, he saw smoke rising in the distance from Elephant Island, smoke that had been lit as a signal. Sir Ernest didn't know how many of his people were still alive. But as he got closer, astonishingly, he found the entire crew of Elephant Island alive and safe. They had first left England on August 8, 1914. After 2 years and 22 days, Sir Ernest Shackleton had brought his entire team back home safely. Of course, he never completed his original mission. He had made 2 failed attempts to reach the South Pole before this, and in the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition, he got trapped just 120 kilometers short. But this survival story gave him a status that perhaps completing the mission could never have given him. 107 years after this incident, in 2022, Endurance was finally found in the Antarctic Ocean. Endurance still exists, perfectly preserved, 3,000 meters below the ocean floor. Even the name written on it can still be clearly read. We hope you liked this Aljum TV video. Please like and share it. Thank you so much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.